Hello, guys, and welcome to an NGB video review. I'm Ben, and I'm here with Gary.
How's it going?
I'm pretty good, mate, and we are going to talk about NBA 2K17.
Cool.
Now, Gary is our sort of resident NBA expert. You pick up the you pick up the games each year and play them to death. I think, don't you?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I think you put something like 80 odd hours into
Oh, so,
2K15 or 16.
16, yeah. I've just lost count how many hours I put into it now, to be honest. But yeah, it's 70 hours plus at least. I know that.
Jesus, yeah. So,
Madness.
I mean, you're pretty well qualified to talk about NBA 2K17 then.
Hmm.
So what's new? What's the big things happening this year in 2K17? Obviously, 2K16 was recently made a PS Plus game, so I think a lot of people will
Yeah.
have picked that up. Um, would you reckon there's enough to sort of warrant an upgrade from 2K16?
Um, from a sort of a package standpoint, I'd probably say no.
Okay.
Because there's not been massive sort of changes in that regard. Obviously they've added a few more teams. Like you've got the USA '92 basketball. Like they were like the pinnacle of like teams in the NBA,
Hmm.
in basketball. Sorry. So you've got a few like extra teams. You've got like Australia added, and you've got a few sort of improvements to modes. My career changes every year,
Hmm.
which I'll come on to later because that's one of my biggest issues with this year's game.
Okay.
Um, but as from a gameplay standpoint, it's improved massively. They've added more animations, so it feels more fluid.
Hmm.
It just feels more like a basketball game, if that makes sense, rather than a sort of video game version of basketball, if that
Right.
sort of makes sense. So yeah, from a gameplay standpoint, it is very, very good. It's really good fun. It's still got its issues, which I'm probably going to talk about in a bit, but um, if you're looking to sort of jump into the series after sort of hearing people rave about it, this is definitely the one to jump into.
Okay.
There's a lot in there. There's obviously you've got all the online stuff. There's My Pack, which is like a big online sort of what's the word? Sort of like it's a hub where you hang out with and play games with other friends.
Okay. So
Uh,
just like a big lobby kind of thing.
yeah, pretty much. And then you've just got the standard online stuff. Like I say, you've got My Career, you've got My Team, which is NBA's 2K's version of Ultimate Team.
Hmm.
So there is a lot there, but it has got its issues. But from a gameplay standpoint, it is very, very good. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So what sort of issues are there with the game? I think probably the biggest complaint that I certainly had with 2K16. I'm not a huge basketball fan, but
Mm,
I have sort of tended to pick up the NBA 2K series because they always look amazing.
yeah.
But I think one of the biggest things, the biggest problems I had last year was actually one of its headline features, and that was the sort of story around
My Career.
my career, which there was a lot of hype made about it, but it didn't make a whole lot of sense.
No.
Um,
Yeah. 'Cause obviously last year was Spike Lee's
yeah,
sort of version of My Career. And yeah, it was a bit sort of weak. It just yeah, like, totally agree with what you're saying. It sort of didn't really make sense. And it wasn't sort of like considering Spike Lee is a great um, director writer from Hollywood.
hmm
I expected more. The writing wasn't great in it. But the biggest shock for me this year was My Career is actually worse this year than it was last year.
okay,
And that is one of my biggest issues with it. Like the one mode that I put a lot into is My Career.
yeah,
I just love the whole story element, building up your character, going through like the whole sort of your whole career in the NBA, starting out at high school and then gradually building yourself up. And this year it's just so disjointed. It's not to say that the story isn't great because yeah, it's very generic and it's cliched to fuck. Sorry for the French. Um, but it's just yeah, there's sections there where the loading times are just ridiculous. Every time you go into something, it's a load screen or a loading time, and it just becomes like a chore. It's like a grind, to be honest.
oh, that's a shame.
And it really does feel disjointed. Like you start off in high school. The sort of traditional stuff, going to the draft, get picked by a team. I was picked by the Phoenix Suns, which, yeah, not a great team, but they're not the worst.
Yep.
And then the story, it's typical sort of NBA style story. But then you go into your sort of hub and you get offers to events, you have to practice, then you
Yep.
go to games, and every time you click on one of them to do something, there's loading. And it just pulls you out of the whole experience. And I was really looking forward to my career this year. It's not bad as such, but it's just not as good as I sort of wanted it to be.
Yeah. I mean,
And it's just
I think that's probably one of the things is where you've had this mode that's so good for so long, and then if they've tried to do, they obviously tried to do something quite different with it last year, but I don't know whether they just tried to put more into it and it's not quite fit into place, or
possibly. It's like this year's another big issue with it. My career wise is the cutscenes. You can't skip them.
oh, what?
And that like for me personally, it's not a massive issue, but I know some people that just don't want to watch cutscenes.
Yeah.
And there's not like hundreds of them within an hour, but they do sort of pop up frequently, which can sometimes it takes you like 45 minutes before you've actually playing a game, which is just like insane.
Yeah.
Like the game is so good from a gameplay standpoint that you should be spending more time on the court rather than in menus and so it's a good mode, but it's not as good as I sort of expected it to be, unfortunately.
Okay, but I mean, on the whole, I know it's making it sound like you're quite down on it, but on the whole, it sounds like it's a good game.
It's a very good game
with like a few issues in terms of the modes. I mean, it's easy to probably compare it to PES in that respect. In that the gameplay is absolutely phenomenal, and that if you just want to play basketball, or if you just want to play football in terms of PES, it's the best gameplay that you'll get. But then when it comes to modes, there's probably some work to do for next year.
Yeah, definitely. Like this year, I gave it 9 out of 10, and believe it or not, for 2K16, I give it a 9.5. The reason being is because as a package, last year's game was better.
Right.
But from a gameplay standpoint, this year's is better. But because of like the game modes in NBA 2K17, it's just unfortunately not as good. My career being the main issue, I would say.
Okay, so it's kind of it's a bit of an iteration, but 2 steps forward, 1 step back, maybe.
Yeah, but it's still a very, very good game. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, that's NBA 2K17. It's available now. It's out on the PS4, Xbox One. I don't know if it's out on PC actually. That's a good question. But yeah, check it out if you if you like basketball. It's obviously NBA. Well, 2K standard is fantastic, and I mean, just look at it. It looks phenomenal. So
yeah, if you want obviously a more in-depth sort of review, then check out the written review on the site, because obviously we've only got into a very, very small percentage of it. But it's a very good game. And if you're into basketball, then you won't go wrong with it. Put it that way.
Cool. Well, thank you for joining me, Gary, and thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you click like down below. You could subscribe to the channel, and you leave us a comment and share the video about. And we will see you soon. Bye.
Bye.